All right, welcome everyone for Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee for October the 2nd. To start with any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, can I get a mover for the consent items? Moved by Councillor Schneider. See no questions, all in favor? Opposed? And that carries. All right, that leads us to our public hearing matters under the Planning Act. For delegations, I would like to remind all delegations for some guidelines for participation. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting, and that is interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, hate speech, or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations, please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen, reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. And as part of the for the Planning Act, as a declaration, this is a formal public meeting to consider applications under the Planning Act. If a person or public body does not make oral written submissions to the City of Kitchener before the proposed applications are considered, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to a hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal. And before us we have 5.1, which is the official plan amendment, as well as zoning bylaw amendment for 83-87 Weber Street, and that's Brigade Holding Corporation. Mr. Dumart, I believe you are going to present whenever you're ready. And we also have Ms. Bustamante and Mr. Stevenson in attendance as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you and good evening. Before you is a zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment application for the subject lands located at 83 and 87 Weber Street East, proposing a 25-story mixed-use development. Staff are recommending approval of the proposed amendments. The subject lands include the consolidation of two properties at 83 and 87 Weber Street East, which form a rectangular-shaped parcel of land located in the Urban Growth Center in the City of Kitchener. The subject lands are located 450 meters to the Queen and Frederick station stops, which is approximately a 4 to 5 minute walk from the subject properties. The surrounding neighborhood consists of a variety of uses, including commercial buildings, low, medium, high, rise mixed-use buildings, as well as institutional buildings. 83 Weber Street East is currently developed with a 2-story mixed-use building with 2 ground floor commercial units and a residential dwelling unit located on the upper floor, while 87 Weber Street East is currently developed with a 2-story multiple dwelling building. In total, there are 4 residential dwelling units within the existing multiple dwelling building. 3 of the units are currently rented to tenants at market rate, while 1 dwelling unit is vacant and it requires extensive renovations. The owner has several other rental properties in the City of Kitchener, and staff have been advised that the owner has committed to arranging for relocation of the existing tenants to new market rate units and will be assisting and supporting in the relocation efforts. The subject lands are located in a major transit station area in the urban structure of the City of Kitchener's official plan, as well in the region of Waterloo's official plan. And the planned function of major transit station areas is to provide density and developments that will support transit and rapid transit with a mix of residential, office, institutional, and commercial developments. The proposed development represents intensification that will help the city achieve density targets in a major transit station area. The proposed development will support a higher density housing option that will make efficient use of existing infrastructure, parks, roads, trails, and transit. The subject lands are currently designated as Market District in the City of Kitchener official plan, and the Market District land use policies encourage redevelopment and higher density developments along the arterial roads of the Market District, in this case, Weber Street East. And the policies restrict higher density redevelopments internal to the Market District. The lands are currently zoned commercial residential zone D5 and zoning bylaw 85-1. And the existing zoning permits a range of commercial, institutional, residential uses with a maximum floor space ratio of 4.5. So to permit the proposed 25-story mixed-use development, the applicant is proposing to add specific policy area 9 in the official plan to allow for an increased floor space ratio of 14 And they're proposing to change the zoning of the subject lands by adding special regulation provision 805R and holding provision 110H in zoning bylaw 8501. And special regulation 805R will allow for an increased floor space ratio of 14, regulate building setbacks, it will have no minimum parking requirements for dwelling units, and will require indoor and outdoor bicycle parking. Holding provision 110H is required to ensure matters related to urban design and noise are addressed prior to lifting of the holding provision, which will be further addressed through the site plan approval process. So before you is a concept of the site plan for the proposed 25-story mixed-use development. The development will include 335 residential units, along with 3 ground floor commercial units. Vehicular access, the building's lobbies, and ground floor commercial units are proposed along the Weaver Street frontage. A mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units are proposed, along with 14 vehicle parking spaces, 408 indoor secured bicycle parking spaces, and 6 outdoor bicycle parking spaces. 20% of the provided parking will also be required to be electric vehicle ready. Before you use a building rendering of the proposed development, as you'll see, there's an 18-story tower situated on top of the 7-story podium. The Weaver Street frontage includes a well-defined base that has been activated by the at-grade commercial units. Massing is broken up the 8th story of the tower, which mitigate overlook issues and shadow impacts. And the tower massing is broken up vertically by variation in articulation of building materials. And again, the ground floor commercial units will have a 4.5-meter ground floor tall floor, which will then further enhance the streetscape. Extra attention to high-quality urban design that contributes positively to the public realm and streetscape is expected for the subject lands with adequate on-site amenity space for future residents. As such, detailed design will be reviewed through the site plan approvals process, and an updated urban design report will be required prior to removal of the holding provision. The staff is recommending apply to the subject lands. So we have an opportunity here to redevelop an underutilized site and increase housing supply in a major transit station area. This development will contribute to meeting the city's intensification target for the Frederick and Queen major transit station area of 160 people and jobs per hectare, which currently does not meet that minimum target. This development will diversify housing stock and provide additional housing choices in the community, providing a range of unit types including 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. Furthermore, the development will provide for an opportunity to introduce a new compatible built form to the neighborhood that will help contribute towards a complete community. In conclusion, staff are supportive of the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments as they are consistent with policies of the provincial policy statement, conformed with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the region official plan, and the City of Kitchener official plan, and represents good planning and are in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumart. Councillor O'Dooney and Chapman, we are going to hold questions of staff until after we hear all the delegations. I took note of your order. Pierre Chavon and Mr. Stephen Litt. You guys are presenting together, right?
Yes, we are. Thanks. That's great. Thank you, Chair Singh, members of council, members of the public. Thank you, Mr. Dumart, for the presentation. I don't intend to take too long. I just want to elaborate on some of the points that Mr. Dumart raised. I also like to take a moment to thank staff for bringing this application forward and getting it to this point. This evening I have with me is Stephen Litt with Vive Development Corporation, who is the developer in this particular application. Just next slide. So as Mr. Dumart identified, these lands are well located relative to a number of amenities, schools, parks, walking distance to not only 1 but 2 LRT stops. Great location with respect to not only transit but also your active transportation in terms of cycling, your cycling network, etc. Schools, not only elementary schools but also post-secondary education with the Conestoga College along Frederick Street and the market in the same area, all within less than 5-minute walking distance of this property, which is identified at the center of this 400-meter radius in red. As Mr. Dumart noted, this is within a major transit station area. And again, as I noted, within very close distance to definitely two and even three LRT stops. Some of the surrounding land uses, we tried to provide some images here, but obviously there's the Frederick Ion Station, as I mentioned. There's the Conestoga Downtown College campus, the Kitchener Market Ion Station, as well as the Kitchener Market itself, as well as a number of other growing and developing mixed use and developments in the area. So again, this development is certainly not out of context and certainly identified for intensification. Some of the existing uses on the property are these two structures, and they will be removed. As Mr. Dumart indicated, some of them are tenanted, and these tenants will be relocated and offered places in our clients' vast portfolio of rental opportunities throughout the city. And just in terms of summary of the development, again, it's a 25-story rental development, I should say 7-story podium. Somewhat unique for Vive, there are 3-bedroom units in this development, so it's a good mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, so lots of great variety and sort of providing all kinds of housing for all different forms and types of housing sizes. There will be also commercial uses at grade, as well as a large indoor and outdoor amenity space on top of the podium. All the parking will be internalized. And again, as I mentioned, the development is really emphasizing the use of public transit and active transportation. Although the bylaw does allow for 0 parking, we are providing some parking, but again, really the dependence on sort of alternative forms of transportation is key here, and the provision of a significant amount of secure indoor bicycle parking as part of this development. These are just some of the additional renderings. Mr. Dumart had one in his staff report. These are just different perspectives, all looking from basically Weber Street at sort of eye level on the left-hand side, and then sort of a bird's eye view on the right-hand side. I have a slide here just summarizing the various instruments and what we're asking for, but it's all detailed in your staff report, which we wholeheartedly support the staff recommendation. So happy to answer any questions, and thank you for the time.
Okay. Thank you, Pierre. Questions of the delegations. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. Thank you for this, and I'm happy to see that the tenants in the homes have been offered relocation. This is really a nice change to what's come before us, for the last little while. I just want to a question further to that. So the spaces they'll be offered, is the rent, I'll say, comparable to what they're paying now? I don't like. Is it viable for them to be able to move into something else that you're offering them?
That's a great question, and probably one I'll defer to my client, who's got a better handle on sort of his portfolio than I do. So,
Great question. So still very early days. There's a 4-plex and a big old house that was a hair salon. The 4-plex has 3 occupied units. 1 is empty, beyond repair. It's too early for us to really engage in that conversation. And what I can commit to is the same open book, transparent, 6 months notice, lots of help and support to help move these folks. The reality is, the rents are irreplaceable. Like there's no doubt. That's just the reality of the situation. The house that was Diva, the hair salon, is currently rented on a short-term basis to Reception House to help house newcomers who can on a temporary basis. So, trying to do what we can, but it'll be the same transparent process, which we can share the letters that we should send all the tenants when the time comes. So. Yeah.
And I appreciate the position you're in. This is just the sign of the times. It's just when I read this over, I thought, here we are again, back at this place. People are going to be displaced. Call it what you want, is gentrification, and gentrification has been a word that's been used for decades and decades, and we still haven't been able to eradicate it or figure out a way to not have to say this again. So, but I appreciate all that you're doing, and I hope that they can find a place that you'll be able to help them with. Thanks.
Quite a few more. Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to continue along that same thread. So in the report, it says that the current tenants pay market rents, yet a letter that was submitted by one of the current tenants isn't paying market rent. Their rent is $817 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Market rent right now is around $1,800. So I guess, given all the units that you have available out there, are you willing to honor that $817 a month rent to move this? I'm not sure if it's a family. I don't know how many people live in that apartment, but to ensure that they aren't left in the street.
Yeah, absolutely. Once the time comes, we'll do absolutely everything in our power. I think I can't come out in staff's position, but I think market would suggest that when that person moved in, that was what the market was. They've just been there for a long time. So, correct. It's not reflecting today's market, but at the time, I suspect it would have.
Okay. Well, I hope you can find a way to make sure that they're properly housed, right?
Yep.
And are the units going to be condos or rentals?
Rental.
It's all rentals. Also in the report, it makes reference to the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions and adaptation to a changing climate. What are the measures that are actually in this proposal to do that?
Yeah. In anticipation of Councillor Davies' discussion on our last project that hit this horseshoe, we've contemplated, and again, recognizing this is not the normal process, recognizing there's a process of planning applications and vetting and design in public, but we'd like to continue the same 40% better than national building code energy efficiency on this project, so no natural gas. 26 affordable housing units, again, just not speaking specifically to your question, but 26 units at 20% below market rent, and then 2 adaptable and 2 universal design suites in exchange for an increase in height up to 32 floors. Again,
on
in
this
anticipation
application?
of discussion.
On
Correct.
in this application?
Yes.
Oh, but that's not in the report.
It is not, no. In anticipation of our needs in the community for desperate housing, this being mid-market rental, we believe this is an excellent and fair offering to the community.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Clancy.
Yeah, I guess this area is starving for green space. I'll just ask the question again, but I know we take money in lieu of parkland space, but is there any update from staff perhaps on some availability of parkland in this area of town in particular?
I'm sorry, are you asking questions of staff?
Yes.
Questions are before the delegation, so then we
Okay.
can come back to
We'll come
questions
back.
of staff, yeah. Do you, any questions of the delegation, or? Okay. Councillor O'Dooney.
Thank you very much, Chair. I believe previously when you were, should I say, transitioning some previous tenants into a new building, there was this 5-year, I forgot what it was called, but transition
Yeah,
into
sure.
the market rate. Is there an opportunity for something like that to be available for this as well?
Absolutely,
for anyone
yeah.
that's transitioning?
So some specific, to Lancaster, we happened to build one of the 5 buildings there already, and so we were leasing that building. It was there. It was next door. It made a lot of sense. But yes, we can between now and council approach our existing residents and hope to make such transition. So we're further out in this project than Lancaster, but happy to do that.
Okay, now I'm a Ward 5 councillor, so I'm very far from downtown, and we always tend to have a lot of parking spots in Ward 5, so I'm a bit concerned. 336 units, 3-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, and only 14 parking spaces. I think the mindset, people tend to grow over time. They find a place to settle first, and then they grow. They get their first car. They start to build a family, that type of thing. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this, and I would just like some clarity and understanding behind the justification for 336 units.
Yeah, so I can speak anecdotally. Like we're renting 3 buildings in downtown Kitchener, all of which have we built way too much parking. We built 0.7 to 0.9 parking. Those 3 buildings right now, our demand is 0.4 parking per unit. So that's what the market is bringing to the table. I think in Kitchener, we were a pioneer in the region, for that matter, in being an ambassador for not having cars and using public transit, and the $1 billion a few years ago, which would now be probably $2 billion. If you build parking right now in downtown Kitchener, it simply won't be used. It's just it's the reality, and it adds to the affordability, right? So when you have a parking spot, you got to pay to maintain the car, to rent the car, to insure the car. We want communities that are walkable, right? And downtown Kitchener's taking strides in that direction.
I perfectly understand.
Yeah.
My only concern is I hope we don't eventually create a new problem for ourselves when people start to grow, and then now they're parking on the streets, which leads to another problem that we now have to figure out 3 years, 4 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, specific this location, you think about the two office towers across the street, the Galleria complex. I don't know what their vacancy situation is like, but I can probably tell you that parking lot's probably not utilized. Same with the one in Market Square, where Conestoga College. So there's plenty of community parking facilities around that a tenant could, oblige to rent in, right? And this happens in other urban centers and throughout the world. You rent parking off-site, so.
Fair
Yeah,
point.
hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Singh, and thank you for your presentation. And you probably know what I'm going to ask you, and that is, when can we expect, or when are you hoping for shovels in the ground for this particular project?
End of next year, yes, is our hope. Just understanding that the rates at which we borrow money, the bond market increased by 0.2%, which happy to sit down and show you how tight that squeezes a project like this. But we have headwinds against all housing supply. But right now, that's our hope, is end of next year.
All right, thank you.
No worries.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chair Singh, and yes, thank you, Mr. Litt, for anticipating the question. Just wanted to make sure I heard it clearly. So the proposal before us is for 25 stories with no affordable housing component and no commitment to not utilizing natural gas in the interests of the housing supply crisis. If I want to make sure I understand this correctly, you're hoping, and this time at least we have the benefit of 2 weeks between now and council, you're hoping to add an additional 7 stories, and as part of that you would make 26 units affordable, and you would commit to, at the CMHC, 80%? Yeah, okay. And you would commit to having the building not be utilize natural gas, would be heat pumps, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay. I'll have some questions on staff as well, and I appreciate you anticipating the question.
Great, thanks.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Singh, and Councillor Davey asked my questions for clarification. I guess, Mr. Litt, it's really fabulous that you come in here and you're, looking at growing the rental stock and having all these affordable units put in. Who's going to be administering these units, like monitoring these units and doing the property management of these units? Have you thought about using a nonprofit organization to assist with that?
It's a great question. So typically property management, overlooking insurance, cleaning, garbage, bylaw, all that sort of stuff. We hire a third-party large property management company that does that.
Mr. Litt, I think specifically the question is more geared towards the
affordable
specified
suites?
number of affordable units, and if there's
Yeah.
could be consideration of partnership or collaboration with a nonprofit that manages those units and creates a sense of accountability for the duration of the 20-year time period.
That makes a ton of sense. Absolutely would consider that.
Okay, so would you would consider that throughout your portfolio?
Yeah, it's difficult to commit to various projects, but yeah, I would love to table that discussion offline this week and get
Okay.
into the details, yeah.
All right, thank you.
And again, it's as clarity, I think the specification is on most recent announcements and declaration of affordable housing units of the last project of 32. So if there is a feasibility of collaboration with a non-for-profit in the community, that could be for not just specifically talking about these units, but just the recently announced as well, and others perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, we did that at 242 Queen, so there's 4 units that are rented to their community of youth that are in need of support, and so there's 4 buildings in that market rate building, and it's got 118, so yeah, happy to do that.
Okay, excellent. That's all the questions by the committee. Just have a few more. So you're proposing, sorry, 7 more floors?
Correct.
7 more floors. What would the unit count be then? Now, what's it currently, and what are you planning to go up to?
Yeah, give me my notes.
I think we're not asking tough enough questions, so I thought I'd just,
Yeah, I would suggest it probably goes up by a commensurate amount of the previous unit count, but let's get back and update the plans and such before I make such a proclamation, if that's okay.
Okay, so that's not
434, based on my scribbles from earlier today.
434 as opposed to what's currently with the planning application?
336.
300?
36.
336. Okay, so approximately 100 more, and of those 100, 26
yeah.
are going to be specified as CMHC designated affordable housing on the proposal. Okay. Thank you very much to both of you. That's all the questions. Questions of the committee. Sorry, questions from the committee to staff. I have Councillor O'Dooney first, and then Councillor Chapman after. You're done. Councillor Chapman? Yeah, just give me a second. Oh, actually, you know what? There's 2 more delegations, actually, that's registered as well. Let's hold the questions. I think you had wanted to ask, but we'll wait a little bit longer. Peter Watt for Crossways to Life. Sorry, Peter, almost missed you. Me too.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Actually, my apologies, almost missed you. That was unintentional.
No
you
worries.
have 5 minutes to make your delegation.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to share our concerns regarding the proposed changes to property 83 and 87 of Weber Street East. My name is Peter Watt. I'm the Executive Director of Crossways to Life at 79 Weber Street East. First, I'd like to make it clear that we're not opposed to improvements to the downtown core and the increase in available rental properties for the region. However, we do have concerns regarding the current proposal based on our experience in the area. We purchased our property 15 years ago, we renovated it, and it has been a source of mental, emotional, and spiritual healing for so many in the region over the years. We have also witnessed 2 significant apartment buildings that have been built and opened in the last 5 years. The properties on the east and west side of Weber Street at Scott Street. Both of those buildings have a disproportionately low number of parking spaces per number of dwelling units, and we have witnessed the effect that it has had. It is these experiences that we wish to share with you. First, we'd like to talk about the recommendation of a 0 or very small setback that is being proposed for this property. Crossways and the properties in the proposal are all on a very busy street with no access to any side streets. Based on the proposal design for said properties, there's an enclosed and gated parking area with no place outside for quick deliveries such as taxis, Ubers, and deliveries such as Amazon and food. With 336 dwelling units and 3 commercial units, we'd expect that there would be a number of times when even larger trucks, such as moving trucks, would have no option but to stop on Weber. In the morning and evening along Weber, there are no stopping signs for various times of the day, and there is a 7x24 no parking. At the properties along Weber Street, we have accommodated for this. Our property has a drive-through style entrance that allows for deliveries and drop-offs that will not affect the traffic flow of Weber. A 25-story building with 336 dwelling units and a zero setback from the street will not allow for a simple drop-off such as a taxi or Uber. Also with so many units without vehicles, we can expect that there be many deliveries and moving vehicles that will need to stop in front of the building. Approval of this plan is indicating that the city is approving the stoppage of traffic along Weber Street. The lack of on-site parking will and has affected the neighboring properties. We have parking available for our employees and visitors. We have already seen an increase of unapproved parking usage in both our parking lot and the lots on either side of ours. It was suggested by planning that we call bylaw for parking infringements. However, this is the city making changes that affect existing property owners. We have provided the required parking allotments, but now we're being asked to start policing and managing parking. This does not seem like an acceptable solution to the problem. Finally, we'd like to talk about zero parking. We'd also like to talk about the grossly inadequate number of parking spots that Council appears to be adopting as acceptable. With any change, there needs to be some analysis on whether that change has had any major issues and whether it is working. I frequently walk along Weber and then down Scott on the west side in front of the oldest apartment building. The paid parking lot spots are always full. The delivery vehicles are often illegally parked in the driveway and on the streets. And the building is not full. In a market where affordable housing appears to be at a great demand, this building which has been renting for a few years now, is not full. There is even a sign on the front that says, "Move in today." Why is that? I don't have access to the rental costs of this building, but my guess is that the reason they aren't renting there is that people still drive cars. We're flooding the market with properties that do not allow for someone to own a vehicle. I'm going to skip to the last one. Our last concern is about green space and the fact that this particular building with the zero setbacks will not allow for any type of green space, whether even a little strip of grass for a dog to do its business. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. There doesn't seem, there is one. Councillor Clancy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondered if I could ask, I've also heard from some of your neighbors that during the construction phase, there's a lot of workers kind of along Duke Street and in the surrounding streets. Can you comment on that a little bit? It sounds like it's been disruptive, and like what could be done to help and mitigate that disruption, I guess?
Yeah, from our perspective, we did have a couple times where construction workers did park in our lots, and we spoke to them, and they honored and respected our space after that. I would say the biggest issue that we had was the number of times we saw Weber Street blocked for dropping off, and also the fact that we are a counseling office. During the early phase, the pounding that took place during the construction would literally shake our walls and make it kind of difficult to speak with our clients.
Thank you.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. I didn't get the name of your organization, sorry.
It's Crossways to Life.
Crossways for Life?
To Life.
To Life,
Yeah.
okay. And how many years have you been at the site?
On this location, we've been there for 15 years, but we've been in business for 25.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I just wanted to summarize what you're saying here. So you're, and there may be more to the list, but I tried to write them down. So your concerns have to do, first of all, with the low number of parking spots, zero setbacks, no access to any side streets, which I presume would help with the circulation of traffic.
Yes, absolutely.
No place for quick deliveries. So there's no in or out at all? The only place to...
If you look at the drawings, they've not allowed for any sort of quick stop. It would be straight on the street. And their zero setback is basically the sidewalk in front of the building.
Right, and it's quite a busy street. No place for moving trucks, like people moving in and out, and no green space. So I guess my question to you would be, do you see anything positive about this building or this proposal?
Well, I am positive that a building like this is required and needed for downtown Kitchener. My issue is the size of the building for the space that it's on.
Okay, thank you.
That's everyone, Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we have Tracy Graham. Welcome, Tracy. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Hi, I'm Tracy Graham. I'm just here, I'm a tenant at 87 Weber, and I just wanted to know about the relocation and all that, so I'll probably have to talk to the people who just spoke, the proposals.
Yep, the applicant.
I'm the
is
one that
here.
left the letter here, so.
So yes, the applicant is here. So I think he's.
That was my concern, because I know the house is my place. I've been there 10 years and that, so I'm going to have a hard time looking for a place because I have no credit or anything like that. I'm on a set income, so.
So I can't predetermine the conversation, but there seems to be acknowledgement from Mr. Litt that
Okay,
he's
so
willing
just-
to have a conversation with
okay,
you
that's
to
why-
figure out a adequate plan.
Okay, that's why I came here today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I'll just look to Mr. Litt to have that conversation with the delegation. Excellent. Thank you very much. Oh, ma'am, sorry, Councillor Clancy had a question of you, if you don't mind. Comment? Okay, that's okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Go ahead. Comment regarding. Okay, sure, no problem.
I just wanted to thank you. I think it takes a lot of courage to express yourself, to send in a letter, and to come here tonight. And so I'm grateful because I think we all need to know what the realities are for you and other folks displaced when it comes to projects like this, to give a face and a story to what you're experiencing. So I appreciate that, and I hope to hear good news.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. I echo your comments. For a second, I thought you were making comments of the entirety of the proposal, but yeah, I think it's important for you to have specified that to the delegation. That's great. So seeing nobody else, I will take questions of the delegate. Sorry, of staff then. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I guess I would ask how would staff respond to Mr. Watt's concerns?
Do you want to specify again?
Well, I can give the list again, but if you'd like. Do you want me to give the list again?
I think
All
it
right.
brings light to more specifics to what you want staff to comment on,
Okay,
rather
so
than generality.
the low number of parking spaces, zero setback, no access to any side streets, no place for quick deliveries, no place for moving vans or trucks, no green space, and one that I just added was no place for dogs.
Go ahead, Mr. Dumar.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the proposed parking rate is in line with the council-approved parking rates for the Urban Growth Centre. So staff is recommending to implement those council-approved parking rates for the subject lands. As such, they're actually going above and beyond that required rate of 0 and providing 14. They understand, obviously, that we're not quite at a market where there's going to be 0 parking spaces per dwelling unit, and they've done the research and are confident that the 14 parking spaces allocated for the site will be sufficient. In addition for that, the city does have capacity at the nearby city-owned parking lot, which is at the market, and particularly there is a capacity for overnight parking for additional residents to rent from the city. In regards to the setbacks, a 1.2 meter side yard setback is proposed, a 2.5 meter rear yard setback is proposed, And the 0-meter front yard setback is to accommodate the 3.9-meter road widening the region of Waterloo has requested. So the building actually won't be built to the 0-meter setback. It'll still be set back significantly from the sidewalk. Within that space, there'll be the vehicular access to the on-site parking. There'll also be the access to the loading space. So they're proposing a 3-meter by 6.5-meter loading space, so that can be used for moving. There's room for drop-offs for delivery trucks as well as Ubers. So there actually is that provided on site and in front of the building.
Like on the street?
No, in the building, on the subject lands. Go ahead, Mr. Dumar.
Through the chair, it's internal to the building, the drop-off, the loading, and the move-in space. And then in front of that space, there is the right-of-way that could accommodate the drop-off space.
Okay. Maybe I'm jumping the gun on this question, but it sounds like there's an interest in doing a further amendment to the zoning bylaws and increase the building by 7 stories. How will residents be notified, and what public engagement will happen between now and this coming back to council? When I say residents, I mean both those that are living there, but also those in the surrounding neighborhood, within the 240 meters.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so the timelines don't allow for that. We will update our website this evening, and that will update within a couple of days, noting that the proposal has changed. But we have a neighborhood information meeting at the beginning of the process, and we connect with residents and ask them to follow along with the process. So there is an opportunity between now and when this would come back to council to have any direct engagement with residents that aren't already participating in the process.
That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Clancy.
Yeah, I just wonder if there is an update around green space. I find like this particular district, I know that there's not a good ratio in most of the downtown, but this area in particular is a green space desert, I'd say. So I don't know if there's any more information about any green space that could come online in the next while, few months, year. Denise.
Ms. McGorrick.
So through the chair, as noted through the presentation and through the delegation, this application would be subject to parkland dedication requirements through cash in lieu. So the monies would go towards our parkland acquisition funding envelope. And certainly, as you know, this area is a critical needs area and is outlined in our spaces strategy. We do not have an acquisition plan as of yet. Bill 23, we need to be certain in terms of funding envelopes available to purchase parkland, and that work is underway, but we do not have an acquisition strategy as of yet.
Do you anticipate, are you waiting for the Bill 23 kind of staff report in order to create the acquisition plan?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just keep it on.
So through the chair, there's 2 priorities underway right now. One is to complete the places component of the places and spaces plan. So that's where staff efforts have been allocated to currently. The other piece of information we're looking for, although there is some headway being made in terms of the process around a parkland acquisition strategy that would be coming forward to council. But at this point, in terms of available funding that we can anticipate to develop a more fulsome strategy, the province has indicated that municipalities will be made whole, and so we're trying to get better clarity in terms of how that would occur.
Okay, thank you. I'll look forward to that update.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, questions of staff. So, similar to the last proposal, I emailed an amendment to the clerk. I'm just going to read it out to see if staff has any thoughts on it. And it would essentially, I'm planning on leaving it open-ended for now, despite the numbers that were put forward. Simply that staff engage the applicant for additional density, along with the addition of affordable housing and additional community benefits, and report back in time for council. First off, I guess I would ask if there's any concerns with that amendment as proposed.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we're learning of these proposed changes as well this evening for the first time. So we can engage between now and October 16th. That would be the next council meeting, and provide an update by email in the same fashion we did last time.
Okay, and that's why I intentionally left it open, because you may agree, you may not, and we obviously value your opinion. Next question, I'm just being cognizant of our mayor's comments on this last time around. I get that it's not a preferred process. It's an emergency process in an emergency time, I guess I would say. I'm wondering if, I'm just sort of seeking staff's opinion in general, of perhaps a notice of motion on how staff should deal with these situations going forward, in terms of items that are in process, where there may have already been a public information session, or should it be raised at the public information session? Would staff find that clarity beneficial, or would you rather have a conversation offline?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think some clarity around it would be helpful. Staff bring a report after working with the applicant within a very tight time frame now as a result of changes with Bill 23. So we do bring what we believe to be a good planning recommendation forward, and when we have to revisit and reevaluate within a week and sometimes 2 weeks, that does put pressure on our other workload and our other files as well. So I think we should have some conversation around it, and maybe we can give that a think and report back as well in 2 weeks on what that could potentially look like.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Reedman? Sorry, I don't know why it's not working. Go ahead.
Through the chair, in 2018 we launched into a development services review where we were really intentional on improving our processes and our timelines to meet. We didn't anticipate Bill 109 and the timelines, but we were able to meet them based on the work we did on the site plan approval process. But in parallel to that, we also launched community engagement changes, because we knew that community engagement was challenging on these. And so when we have these applications come late in the process, it feels like horse trading, and we would rather an application come in fulsome and then bring a forward recommendation to council that we've had the advantage to dialogue with the community on, and to put things forward, because this can erode trust with the community if we keep having these dialogues at the 11th hour. We would rather see an application come in with the full spectrum of what's being included, so that we can bring forward a recommendation that meets, that's been tested and reviewed by planning staff. And so that would be the recommendation and the expectation moving forward from applicants.
Yep, 100% agree, and I'll have comment on that as well briefly afterwards. Thank you.
Councillor Deneau.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do appreciate that Mr. Litt is willing to some of the developers that have come here to increase the height, to be able to give us some accessible units or affordable units. What I don't love is what we've talked about here the last two councillors, is the fact that the community meeting says it's 25 stories, and reality is most people aren't going to follow that process all along. And then we have a meeting here where now we're adding an extra 7 stories. And as Mr. Reedman had mentioned about trust, our job is, as elected officials, and there's so much mistrust with elected officials across the world, but I think we owe it to our constituents to be upfront with them. And so I agree that there needs to be a better process in adding floors or adding density, as opposed to 2 weeks before we actually approve a development. And so I think, we definitely need a process, because again, for those who would have been engaged in the community meeting, they probably have forgotten all about this. And they're going to be in for a big surprise when they read in the newspaper that we're adding an extra, or we may add or approve an extra 7 stories. And I think we just need to be better as to where our, our communication lies with our city.
Thank you. I think it's an important point that needed to be said, and that's why I'd like to carry on. But again, if others have keyed in quickly for comments, still questions of staff, and then we can key back in for comments, which I welcome. Councillor Ioannidis, questions of staff.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Singh, Chair Singh. I would like to, what I discussed earlier with the delegate about administering those affordable units. I wouldn't mind if we can have some form of a process that can be involved in that, and maybe as part of Councillor Davies' amendment as well, that we could probably put that in there.
Yeah, it can be a part of his amendment, or again, it can be direction to staff to ask specific questions as to the operation model of those dedicated affordable units. So that would be part of the information that would be necessary for the council meeting. Would staff need specific directions as to that, or they can take it upon themselves to engage with the applicant on the operating model of the affordable units? Go ahead.
So through the chair, council may know that we are currently undertaking work on inclusionary zoning in our MTSAs as well. So I think staff would really like to look at the discussion we've heard tonight and see how that compares against the inclusionary zoning proposal that we've been looking at, and understand what those financial implications are. So that's a long way of saying, yes, we would like that direction articulated tonight, please. Thank you.
So how would you like to articulate it? This is Councillor Ioannidis, you raised this point, so do you want to have any specific wordage?
I want to put it in. If Councillor Davey could put it in his amendment, put it all in one comprehensive, that'd be fine with me.
Councillor Davey, do you want to add?
Okay, that's fine. I'll bring it back to council.
That being said, I think we're doing a lot very quickly on the fly, but through my comment, I think there's nothing lost on staff as to what's being asked here. That obviously, provided that Councillor Davies' motion gets approved and staff have direction to engage with the applicant regarding additional density proposal, as well as their offering of further affordable housing units, that staff also brings specifics back to council as to what the operating model of those affordable housing units would be, and if there are willingness to take on a community partner, a non-for-profit housing provider, as part of those affordable housing unit offering. I'll take nod of the head as acknowledgement. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Singh, and through you, I just want to say that I agree with both Councillor Davey and with Councillor Deneau. That I think that that as a council we want to be moving forward with more density whenever we have the opportunity for it, but at the same time it is very important that our residents know about it. So my question to staff would be, where is the leeway in you being able to know that with each development application there's probably going to be a question about what can we do more here, or how can we look at utilizing this development to be able to have the most affordable housing and maximizing the land, etc. And will that be enough to do a motion with you, or what kind of directive do you need from council on that?
So, Councillor Johnston, if I may quickly jump in, I think staff has specified, I think greater clarity is required regarding what that process needs to be in dealing with the planning application, especially if there are additional density potential with affordable housing unit consideration as well. I think that's a process that staff would have to bring back as a report. So it would be difficult for them to ask a question as to how that process would look like now. But if you have more specific question as to what the applicant is proposing in staff's in their determination, if that is reasonable, I think that would be appropriate to the application itself.
You're right, it's not necessarily specific to this application, it's more of a
But you
big,
can ask it
more of
specific
a
to this
big
application.
picture piece, so I will, I
No,
guess
but
you
that
can
being
take that as
said,
a
that being
comment.
said, that being said, if you want to ask specific to this application regarding the 26 units, as well as a 7-story height addition, you can ask staff on their consideration.
I think they probably already answered that in saying that it's difficult to kind of turn that around in a week. So
Perfect, that's fair.
I will take it more as a comment, Chair Singh. Thank you.
Okay. I just don't want to give staff a more tough time than they're already dealing with right now. Councillor Davey.
Comment?
Yes, we're ready for comments.
Yes, thank you. So by way of comment, yes, Councillor Johnston, I think I 100% agree with Councillor Janelle's comments as well. The reason, and when I'm talking about bringing notice of motion, I really see this as a really short-term sunset situation because, Mr. Reedman's right in terms of and frankly, everyone else that's said that there should be better notification to the public of these processes. But the reality is times have changed very, very quickly from the time that the applicant put their application in to today in a number of different ways, most notably the severity of the housing supply crisis. So I have no doubt that in average terms, applicants would come forward with their best proposal from day one. And I think we can surmise the reason that didn't happen is because there probably wasn't an appetite like there is today for the housing supply. So having said that, I'm very cognizant of the pressures that this puts on our planning staff. But as I said, it's a response to extraordinary times. And if we can put together some framework for that in the short term for all those applications that are in process or have had a public information meeting already, I think that would be helpful. And I think it's really a simple change for the rest of the applications going forward in terms of making the public aware that we are in a housing supply crisis, and should the applicant choose or decide to change things later in the process, that might be something that council or committee would consider in trying to deal with the situation that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Okay, so the amendment is moved by Councillor Davey. Can I get a mover on the main motion? Councillor Ioannidis on the main motion, and the amendment is already on the table from Councillor Davey, and we're going to take a vote on the amendment first. So if comments regarding the amendment as well as the main motion, if you want to make it combined, that would be helpful. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. I like what I've heard, both from Councillor Davey and Councillor Deneau. So my hope is that, the good things that Councillor Davey has asked of, tonight and in previous nights can maybe be asked by staff of the applicant at the time of application. So when we go to the PICs, that citizens are well aware. I think it's better for all. And I really like Councillor Ioannidis' suggestion of a service provider looking after the affordable units. I think it's better if someone who knows and is experienced in what they're doing does that instead of a property manager, because my main concern is if these are affordable units, I want to make sure someone who needs an affordable unit is getting it, not just someone getting great rent when they could afford more.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what was said earlier. Emergency process and an emergency plan and the need for an emergency plan. Well, the emergency problem we have here is affordable housing. If I'm not mistaken, what's being proposed here is 80% of market value, which doesn't really need an additional form of management. What we need to ensure is that 80% of market value is at least, if we go by the proposed zoning bylaw, the inclusionary zoning bylaw, we have to have mechanisms to ensure that will stay for 25 years. That to me is a bigger problem, because to manage 80% of market value, I'm not quite sure that it doesn't need wraparound services. We just need to know that that's going to stay for that 25-year period. So yes, we do have an emergency, and that emergency is affordable housing, and that's not what's being proposed here. There is a functioning process, and I think Mr. Reedman made, although he didn't say it, but
we do have a functioning process, and what's being proposed here is undermining that functioning process, and as has been mentioned, really calls into question trust that people are going to have with the processes that we engage in. So I think we have to really think hard about this, because we're doing things on a whim, and it's not good planning. And I'll use the words of staff in that regard. And out of respect for staff, I think we need to put trust in the work that they're doing. So yeah, I will not support the amendment, and I really hope that we can find ways to approach the planning process in a way that is functioning. And to me, this isn't functioning. Thank you.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Singh. The reason why I'm asking for a third-party nonprofit to look at these is because they are the ones who are experts in this industry. They're the ones that will be able to ensure the right residents get in there. They're the ones that will be able to ensure that these units will be in the time allotted for whatever the 20-year time to make sure that these units are available for affordable housing. So there is some form of accountability there. That's the reason why I'm putting forward that recommendation, because I understand where you're coming from with that. So, and I think a lot of us here are also feeling that way. So we want to have some assurances as well. And so that's why I think it's important that we look at this alternative, because again, they're the experts, and not so much, I'm not saying the proponent is an expert. He's an expert in but in managing rent-to-geared income or whatever the units are classified as. They're not the ones that are going to be waiting on a waiting list. They can, we need to work cohesively with this, with our regional partners and everything else, so that we can shift some of these units for that supply.
Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair Singh. And you know what? I don't think that we're apart. Any of us are really apart on this. We are all interested in affordable housing, and from everything that I've read, it says that we need more housing stock. We only have so much land. So when these, as Councillor Davey was saying earlier, that when the proposals first come to planning, which can be perhaps 8, 10 a year in advance, things were, well, okay, or they were, sorry, maybe, Mr. Riemann is shaking his head. They came a while ago and things have changed. And we are in more of a housing crisis, and the government has, been changing rules in that as well. And when we only have so much land, that I do believe that we need to have as much, we need to be building as much housing density on those spots as we can. So that's where I see that the changes happen. I don't disagree that the public needs to know what might possibly be happening here as well. So I really don't see that we're at odds with each other. We're just having some different approaches here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. I agree with you. I don't think necessarily the intended benefits of creation of housing, there's any disagreement around this horseshoe. I think the processes are definitely beginning to raise a question. I think, Councillor Deneau, you've raised the point very effectively. It's ensuring that we maintain that very serious consideration of public trust, that there's a clarity as to the process of how a development application comes forward and how it transitions, and exactly what the outcome of that staff recommendation might be. That being said, and again, because we kind of, have to agree with both aspects of it, we are dealing with a housing problem. I think it's a housing problem specifically. It is very much a affordability issue right now, but as a larger perspective, it's a housing problem. There are individuals all across the spectrum that are feeling that crunch about finding access to for habitation. And everyone's important, not just one demographic, not just one part of the spectrum. Everyone is important, and we need to create housing options for all. So when that comes as a consideration or potential as an application like this, on its basis, I absolutely support it. I think it's in the right area. The issues regarding parking, yes, it's very low, but we have a very well-defined council policy that's supported a long time back that states within the MTSA, this council supports zero parking because there's enough infrastructure within our core, as well as changing transportation patterns where not as many people are requiring to have a vehicle. They can make do with no cars. And we would like to start seeing development that doesn't rely on parking infrastructure, because that's parking infrastructure that could be made into housing. That's vehicles that don't necessarily need to be on the roadway that align with our sustainability mandates as well. So, the basis of the application as it's being presented, I support it. I would say, offering on the day of does create a challenge. I agree with and support and encourage what the developer is proposing, but I think there needs to be some heads up to staff. It's not fair to staff to make comment or advice on a matter that they weren't first made privy of. Hopefully the 2 weeks will give an adequate time for staff to engage with the delegate. The fact that there's 26 units on its basis, it's great. It does go 100 units more, which answers that questions about, hey, we need to create more housing options. We need to create increased inventory at the fastest pace available. If it was anyone else, I would have more questions where we're dealing with an applicant that does develop fast, that does build fast, that is building to rental market, which is a deficit that we have in our community, and that's what we want to see a greater number of. So any number of rental units is good for our community. And on top of it, if almost 26% of that 100 increased numbers is affordable housing, that's even better. So more so a comment to staff as you're engaging with the delegate. I wholeheartedly agree and support Councillor Ioannidis's encouragement to staff to engage with the applicant as to what that end operator would be of those affordable housing units. I think there needs to be a clarity back on its basis, even though I think there is a developed trust with this specific applicant and developer. I think needs to be more so to the general public as a realization that how those affordable housing units will be managed for that 20-year duration, and more importantly, the accountability of who those units are being rented to. And I think that needs to be in place as part of a process as staff look at a wider way of engaging with the development community that presents applications on its own best merit that may not require affordable housing units because they're not within the MTSA, or we don't have a basis for them to require to have affordable housing units, but the developer is able to, within their pro forma, offer increased number of units, but also a community benefit of affordable housing units as well. And I hope to see something coming back from staff so we have a better basis and better process in place. So with that, the main motion has been moved, as well as Councillor Davies' amendment has been moved as well. I will take recorded vote. I will take the amendment first. All those in favor through the recorded vote. All right, that carries with one opposed. And now to the main motion. All those in favor? Oh, still recorded? Yeah. Just go ahead.
Like with the amendment, what are we voting on? Like an amended original application?
This is the amended original application, yes.
But we're asking staff to come back to us with more information, so we're really not... We have
not necessarily with more information. We've, through Councillor Davies' amendment, which is now part of the main motion, is now supporting the staff recommendation with also giving direction to staff to engage with the applicant regarding additional height, density, as well as the affordable housing unit consideration. So we're voting on the amended main motion.
In the past, we've deferred.
I think we should look to the clerk for clarity if there's
In the
specific.
past, I thought when we were doing some adjustments, we've deferred it to council, but I don't know if you have to request that?
Through the chair, the only thing that you've done essentially at this moment is add an additional clause to the staff recommendation. So if you look at the staff recommendation as outlined in the report, it's still approval of the staff recommendation, which is the 25-story building, with an additional clause that staff are supposed to report back by October the 16th. So you have not changed anything in regards to the official plan amendment or zoning bylaw application.
Just the amendment for staff to engage with the developer. You good?
For clarification, then, what that means is that on the 16th, what will be on the report will be the original recommendation, and if there's successful negotiations and discussion between now and then, staff may come forward with an alternate motion, just so that everyone's clear on it, that council will then vote on the 16th.
That would be my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so it's been requested for recorded vote for the main motion as amended. And that's supported unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we have, just for information, the Integrity Commissioner's annual report. I see no questions in that case. I will take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Davey, all those in, oh, go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, do we get the details of what those 3 items were in the integrity report, or? No, we don't. That's not shared. Okay.
No, I don't think so. Are you talking about for the information item?
Yeah.
I'll look to the clerk.
Through the chair, I just needed to confirm, at this moment, there is no disclosure with regards to those items.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, it's been moved by Councillor Davey to adjourn. All those in favor, opposed, carry. Thank you very much.